Welcome to Demasked. My name is Fresman, and today I'm joined by Beyond5150. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So, from what I can see here, you do horror narrations on YouTube?
Yes, that's basically what I've been enjoying lately. I've definitely enjoyed doing a lot of the reading, and so I,
Hmm.
I had some friends enjoy me reading stories to them, and so I decided to give this a go, and it seems to be going well so far.
How long have you been doing it for?
It's actually been fairly short. I've only posted my eighth episode. I do live readings rather than how some other narrators will do individual videos per story.
Hmm.
I'll do a live reading where I will read for anywhere between 4 and 6 hours, multiple stories in a row.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite story?
Uh, there was a couple actually. I've been working with one author lately, and a lot of this author's stories are very, very well done. She's worked with me on putting together some backstory for the character for my narrations, as
Hmm.
well as helping me customize introductions and things of that nature. And so I tend to lean more for the author than a specific story, but I'd have to pull up my favorite story because I can't remember the title of it. There was one I did find that I have yet to get permission to read that I really enjoyed. Um, Let me pull it up here because I've been looking most for the stories on Reddit, and I put requests to the authors to do
Hmm.
those stories. Um, Okay, the title of the story is Do Not Leave the Circles. And I'm hoping I'll get a response from this author because it is an amazingly written story. Kind of fits the way I enjoy reading, where it kind of starts out calm and starts to increase more panic, anxiety, or even, depending on the character, insanity, even. Um,
Hmm.
and so it increases the swell of emotion as you get through the story.
Hmm. So, is the live reading, is that have you had a channel before this, or is this your first channel?
Oh, this is my first channel. I've actually had this channel since 2007,
Hmm.
and only thing I had put on it was like two little videos. One I put on I think in 2008 or something like that, and was really goofy and dumb. And then another one of my kid um, when she was riding her bike, and then I just didn't do anything. It's just watching videos with it, and so I don't do a whole lot other than watch my kids. I'm a single father, so I don't
Hmm.
work anymore either due to my injuries. So I wanted to use that time to do something productive, and I found that doing these readings is really relaxing and comfortable for me, and I enjoy doing it. And so I figured I'd give this a go, take advantage of that time that I don't have at a job like other people have the are able to do. So it gives me that feeling of completion that I'm doing something with my time rather than sitting on my butt all the time, which is
Hmm.
quite boring to say the least.
Hmm. Well, especially with the with the whole pandemic going on, and hopefully
Right.
by the time this episode airs, that's solved. I hope, please.
Oh, absolutely. That would be amazing if we could get back to the normal country again. Everyone out and about having fun, relaxing, and not stressing anymore. That I think will definitely help everybody out across the country. And that'll be a
Hmm.
wonderful thing to see.
Well, I actually had a quick question. So,
Mm-hmm.
where did you come up with the name Beyond 5150?
I actually had it from when I was in the Marine Corps. A friend of mine, when I was in, um, laughed at me about a comment I had made, um, and basically, 5150 is a code that basically refers to a 72-hour involuntary commitment in a psych ward. So
Hmm.
they thought it was funny to call me Beyond 5150, meaning I'm beyond crazy. And that was how I came up with that. And I've had that since 2003, that used that name. And I have used it on numerous web pages, as login stuff
Hmm.
and things like that. So as well as characters. When I play Xbox, that's my login for that.
Hmm.
My username for it. So I just kind of stuck with it. And then when I got into the creepypasta community, which I started because of a very great narrator, um, I became one of his moderators. And I thought, you know what, I might try to give this a try myself. And the name works because, Beyond Crazy. And so I've kind of gone that route. And it kind of
Hmm.
it fits. So I haven't felt a need to change it yet.
Yeah, it's short, sweet, simple, and it's even multi-layered.
Right. Yeah, and I usually refer to the channel as the Asylum. Um,
Hmm.
so when I tell them welcome to the Asylum kind of thing, and
Hmm.
I'm the head inpatient at the Asylum. So that's how we've kind of gone that route, and it really fits with the theme as well as the unusualness and creep factor that goes along with typical creepy pastas.
Hmm. So you mentioned using 5150 as your Xbox tag. What games do you play?
Lately, we kind of finished playing Diablo 3 lately. Kind of reached
Mm.
as far as we can go, um, and there's no further to reach at this point because unless you modify your user, your what is it, the save file.
Mm.
Um, and we don't want to go that route. So a friend of mine, we played it together, and so we got bored of that, and now we just started playing No Man's Sky. I got him into that, but I also
Mm.
enjoy playing things like Assassin's Creed. I do enjoy first-person shooters. I used to start. That's what I started with, was
Mm.
first-person shooters, um, and I do like the fantasy ones like um, brain fart. Um, the name just right over the head. Um,
Skyrim.
yes, thank you. Skyrim. That's exactly the one. Yes, like that Skyrim or Dragon Age,
Mm.
things like that, where there's a bit of more RPG element to it. I started gaming in the early 2000s on my computer, and then moved to the Xbox when the Xbox 360 came out.
Mm.
Um, I actually got my first Xbox was the Halo 3 edition.
I started way back on like the PS1.
Uh, well, I actually did have a Super Nintendo and a 64, um, but it wasn't that I was a kid, and I wouldn't consider I was huge into it. We were a little more restricted on playtime and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really got more into the gaming after I got out of the Marine Corps.
Mm. What would you say is your current favorite right now?
Um, my favorite. I really have been enjoying the relaxing nature of No Man's Sky, um,
Mm-hmm.
but I also really like doing the Assassin's Creed games as well.
Mm.
I have them all at this point, so um, man, a favorite one though is really hard to decide. I think that right now the one I've been really liking the most is No Man's Sky.
I've yet to pick that up.
I like it because it's got a more relaxed tone to it. One of the things I used to play years ago was EverQuest 2. And
Mm.
one of my favorite things to do was just run around harvesting materials, making things along that nature, and making money that way. And that's a thing you can do in this game in No Man's Skies. You know, run around, explore, mine, harvest, and things like that, and build things. And that's relaxing for me. And then when I want a little more adventure, run out and do some space battles and things like that. So it's I like it because it doesn't have the. I tend to enjoy games that don't have an end.
Mm.
So where even if the main story is finished, you can just keep going no matter how long, and just never end kind of games. So I've enjoyed those like MMORPGs. I also do play occasionally Star Trek Online. Haven't been on that in a while, but I might start playing it again more often.
Mm. I'm more of a collector when it comes to the types of games that I play.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love like Skyrim. I love like collecting helmets and armor and books.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd kind of go around that direction as well, making sure I have a full set of a specific unique armor and things like that. It's definitely enjoyable.
Well, I recently got into the Fallout series.
Ah, yes, Fallout, very excellent series. I only played Fallout 3 and 4. I waited on 76 because it felt weird and I wasn't too interested in the online multiplayer function of it. And I'm glad I waited because it ended up to being unfortunately, a failure. So I'm glad I decided to wait instead of pre-ordering it.
I like. I don't know about you, but is it me or can you tell if a game sucks just by its trailer?
Sometimes. I mean, there have been a few games that have been really amazing trailers, but once you get to the game, it's total garbage. I'm trying to think of one that... brain fart. There was one that there was... I think it was a FIFA game, and I'm not normally into... I don't really get into the sports games myself, but I saw the trailer, and it looked amazing, and then I saw people... some Let's Plays of it, and it basically looks to be an overglorified slot machine with a little bit of gameplay thrown in.
Yeah. Well, specifically with Fallout 76 when it first came out, they're like, it's going to be 4 times the size of Fallout 4. It's going to have all these cool new details. I'm like, there's no way it's going to work on launch. There's no way.
Yeah, I saw the failure with them trying multiplayer. Considering Fallout has always been a single-player game, and not a lot of people really want the PvP function. I mean, if they want PvP, they'll find a game that's focused entirely on PvP. But Fallout has always been about the story and the exploration, rather than fighting each other in mech suits. So I kind of foresaw that being a failure just because of the fan base of Fallout has always focused very heavily on the storyline and on the exploration and learning about the environment you're in.
Well,
And then they didn't have any NPCs in 76, and that just made it even worse. It just felt empty.
Yeah. And then they added them back in because they're like, oh no, people actually really like the NPCs.
Exactly.
Well, with 76, I've been playing it a lot recently, but I think I found a happy compromise. And it's I'm not playing on the overall server with like all of like the 50 other people. I'm playing with 2 other people.
Right.
But it's 2 people I know, and we're working together. And I think that's actually made the experience way better.
Well, I think having that group of friends to play games with is what makes a lot of games more enjoyable. It's hard to get into multiplayer games when you're by yourself, when you don't have a community. And I think that's the biggest factor when people are looking for multiplayer games is to find a community that they can link in with and enjoy time with. And if most people who play primarily first person don't have a large gaming friend community,
Mm.
either maybe their friends just enjoy a different genre of game, or they just are new into that specific game type, versus, like an RPG or MMORPG or a first person shooter, um,
Mm.
or the Dota styles, League of Legends, those kind of games. So I think it all depends on being able to find people to play with that enjoy, that you like hanging out with and enjoy playing a game together. Whether or not the
Mm.
game sucks, I think is kind of secondary.
Mm. Well, it also, like, there's something that popped into my head just now, which was do you remember when like Halo Reach came out?
Yeah, yeah.
That so I long for that the ability to go back to that point in time, and thankfully we can now because Reach got re-released on PC recently.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in, I think it was in my sophomore year of high school when that came out, and so it was like me and the other nerdy kids were like, guys, you want to go do a legendary run of Halo Reach's campaign for like the fifth time?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Having that co-op function was, I definitely made Reach a good game. Because I played, like I said, I started with Halo 3 with a friend of mine, and we would play all the time, and I loved the ability to make custom maps and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we played that for so long, and then we ended up moving into like the Call of Duty series,
Mm-hmm.
first person shooting, and then I kind of gave up on it after Black Ops 2, I think it was. I just stopped playing Call of Duty. No, I went to Ghosts. I went up as far as Ghost and then stopped playing the Call of Duty games. Um, Focused primarily on raising my kids at the time as well. So.
Mm-hmm. I Well, it's funny you mentioned Black Ops 2 because I think that's where a lot of people kind of fell off.
Yeah, well, I mean, they went a really weird route with the advanced warfare and then the infinite warfare. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I wasn't interested in that futuristic stuff. I mean, if I want futuristic, I'll go play Halo.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the Modern Warfare series tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that was the peak of Call of Duty, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But Black Ops 1 was a great game, too, at the same time, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, Black Ops 1, it feels like it was. So, you know how it's kind of become that joke of like the yearly Call of Duty game?
Yes, yes. Every year they put a new one out. In fact, they're still doing that. They're supposed to be. I think the rumor for the next one is a reboot of Black Ops.
Oh, no.
That's the rumor, that they're rebooting it under Black Ops, just like they rebooted Modern Warfare. But they seem to have hit it off there, the designers, by finding that niche because everyone really enjoyed Modern Warfare, and then remaking it, rebooting it was successful, and they're making hand over fist. So I'm thinking maybe they're in their minds they're thinking, oh well, it was a success with Modern Warfare. Let's see if we can do it again with Black Ops.
Let's just drive it into the ground at this point.
Well, it is EA.
Yeah, it's Activision.
Sorry, Activision.
Ugh.
EA and Activision, the two big ones. They both
Interchangeable, really.
Yeah, they basically do the same thing. They run an IP into the ground by just releasing it so many games over and over and over and making changes, and then they really almost destroyed the gaming industry with all this loot box junk.
Yeah, I think, like, how do I word it? I don't think it's a good move if your game is based solely uh off of loot boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's a game called Warface on PC that does that,
Right.
and it's it's you're getting cosmetic items that have a timer on them, so you only have that cosmetic for a couple hours.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so but there are versions of that which I don't believe are inherently offensive. Sure, I like yes, it is gambling.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially with like your Counter Strike,
Right.
you know, global offensive, getting the knives that cost like $300 real.
Yeah.
Is
I'm not huge into those, to be my honest. I'm not really, really big into where they try to push more and more purchases into the games, and
hmm,
that's why I've been on and off with a game I used to play very heavily, Star Trek Online, because they started going that direction as well. It's just a huge amount of real money spent in game, and
hmm,
it's getting worse and worse. Especially after you already pay $60 for a game, they want you to pay another $60 for this and that and this and that,
hmm.
and now that what are they called? Season passes, not season passes, the other kind.
Is it?
What is?
Aren't they just like, oh, it's this season 4
Yeah,
and all this?
yeah, those ones. So it is season passes. That's what it is. But basically, instead of it being, well, you pay the extra $30 and you get all the DLC kind of content.
Hmm.
Now it's, well, pay $30 for every single new season that comes out. But that's the new thing right now. So we'll see if it
Yeah.
how long it continues.
Well, I think so. I think loot boxes that you have to spend real money on are is a terrible idea.
Yeah,
And just a sec.
I agree.
Uh,
Absolutely.
but I think there is a way to implement it where it's not as parasitic, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, like your Overwatch, you can spend money on loot boxes. That's totally an option that you have, but you can also get it just by playing and leveling up. That's it, and you
Right.
don't have to spend a dime.
Mm-hmm.
And then was I found Fallout 76 has loot boxes in it, but it's not on the main menu. It's not that invasive. You have to go find it. It's out there in Appalachia somewhere, and it's a vendor that you have to go find.
Right.
And even then, they actually kind of institute this, like it feels weird, like defending Fallout 76, but they institute this weird like this kind of give and take with loot boxes, or at least their version,
Mm-hmm.
where instead of spending caps or scrap, you get like a currency based off of legendary weapons. So if you kill a legendary enemy and take their gun and all this, you can go and scrap that specific gun to then get that currency to then buy that box if you want to go through all that trouble.
Hmm.
And the fact that me and I was playing with weekly creeps, but the fact that we were running around for hours and we happened to find one, and there was no menu thing for it.
Hmm. Yeah. There's been a lot of glitches with that game, from what I've heard. I've just seen a lot of videos of the different errors and glitches that occur. Some game breaking, and so yeah, it's a train wreck at the moment. Hopefully they fix it. Just like, there's a lot of good games that could be if they spend a little more time.
You mean like the original version of No Man's Sky when it came out?
Yeah, I think that if they waited and implemented Next into it earlier, or no, what was it? No, I think it was Beyond where they fixed it first. And
Mm-hmm.
then Next is the most recent one. Either way, it's really good now. I like it now. There are still some glitches, Most of it visual glitches that resolve after a couple seconds, but
Mm.
it's definitely more playable now, without a doubt.
Well, I remember back when that game first came out, there was a lot of complaining from a buddy of mine at the time who had bought it day one, and he has a HOTAS, the steering and throttle for spaceships and all that,
Mm-hmm.
like a real version of it. And I don't know if it does nowadays because I don't have the game, but it didn't support HOTAS.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't play it on PC. I play it on my Xbox.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure what kind of input control options it has, to be honest. But yeah, that would be frustrating,
Hmm.
especially if you want that immersion.
Yeah. I I have a flight stick around here somewhere. It's packed away in some box. But I'll play was it the 2008 version of Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Right. Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier with the flight stick actually.
Interesting. Interesting. Huh.
Because you can get like finer movements, you can control your the thrust, and you can actually like map the trigger to the I almost said phasers. Why do I have Star Trek on the mind?
Probably because I mentioned Star Trek Online.
I I'm a big fan of the series. Do you watch Star Trek?
Yeah, I've watched it since I was a child with the original series, and then the Next Generation. I think the one
Mm.
that I never really got into very much was Deep Space Nine.
Isn't that the one with the Janeway?
No, that's Voyager. That one actually, I went to boot camp during the final season of Voyager.
Really?
Yeah, so I missed out on the season finale, but my mother recorded it for me when I returned from.
Well, there you
So
go.
yeah, that was our thing with my mom and I. We'd sit back and watch, Voyager every week, and it was definitely. I've always been into Star Trek. I like Star Wars just as much, but
Mm.
I like Star Trek a bit more because it has a bit more realism, I guess you could say, to it.
Mm.
Less magic, more science.
Mm. Well, I mean, crystalline entity and Q.
Well, you get these are beings that exist at a higher level, at different uh,
A different
dimensions, things like that.
magical level, yes.
Oh, they're not magical. It's like Q is a essentially a level of a god. Essentially, it's omnipotent,
Mm.
but he exists in a completely different dimension, I guess you would say.
Mm.
The the
Who's your
continuum.
favorite character?
I've always been huge with. I like Picard. He's my favorite, and I really did enjoy the Picard series that they just put out. Even if I was a bit bummed that they made some changes that messed up pre-position plannings. Okay, so when Star Trek Online first came out, it was
Mm.
obviously it was owned by CBS and Paramount,
Mm.
and the deal with it was, at least as far as I was made aware of, um, that the storylines within Star Trek Online would be used in any future Star Trek shows, if they continued along that timeline.
Uh,
And so it wasn't a big deal when they brought out the reboot, J.J. Abrams reboot, or with Discovery, because Discovery was long before, and they've made Discovery easily hidden through the fact that it was redacted from the data because of its classified nature and all that stuff. But then there's when they came in with Picard, it messed that up because there was already preset lore in Star Trek Online that
mm.
they data came back. They used the B4 model and were able to get the memory engrams that Data set
Mm.
aside, trying to fully unlocked B4. And the way they had
Mm.
hinted it at the end of Star Trek Nemesis, that Data was essentially sort of coming back. But then when Picard came out, they killed that whole storyline. That you know, no, B4 did not become Data did not come back. He's dead for good, kind of thing.
Mm.
B4 was just an utter failure. There was no way that the memory engrams worked, and so it kind of damaged a lot of it retconned a lot, and that was a bummer. I felt that
Yeah.
damaging the future storylines that are already put in place with the game, which was
Yeah.
originally contracted to have that agreement where the storylines in the game would continue on.
Mm.
But it is what it is.
Do you remember the Star Wars extended universe?
Yes, yes. I used to read all those books all the time. Timothy Zahn, great author, a few other ones as well, but he was a big one with the Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was another series. I don't remember what the author's name, but it was the Dark Apprentice series with Kip Duran. And then they had they continued the storyline where Luke gets married to Mara Jade, has
Mm.
kids, and Han and Leia have, I think, was it 3 kids, a set of twins, and then Ben.
Mm. And Kyle Katarn's like the baddest good guy ever.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, there was. It was interesting to see what they ended up doing with the storylines, and when Disney took over and then just relegated all of this stuff that was set a great future for the story series and relegate it to Legends.
So I think it's fair to say that the movie timeline, the series of events that the newer movies follow, is a much more like upsetting path than the extended universe, because like the extended universe, everything's fine, question mark. like like there's a new Jedi Academy established. Kyle Katarn becomes like one of the teachers at the Jedi Academy. Han and Leia have kids. Everything's cool, right?
Well, there have been several issues. I mean, you had Admiral Thrawn, who almost wiped out the New Republic, and
Mm.
then you had several um, Sith Lords pop up. Uh, you had Kip Duran, who was one of Luke's apprentices, goes a little nuts and uses the what was it, the Star Killers. I can't remember what it was, what the device was, but it was a ship that could literally destroy stars.
Mm.
Um, Things of that nature. There was and then there can't remember the evil guy on eBase. I can't think. My brain's not thinking of it at the moment. But following there's lots of significant events. Then you have the Yuzon Vong invasion, and almost the entire destruction of the Republic galaxy in general from the Yuzon
Mm.
Vong. So there was quite a bit of significant negative events that went on that made it seem like, well, they may not succeed, things may collapse and fall apart. So
Mm.
I don't think so much that the books kept everything on a high note more than the films did. I think the books, just because being in a book media, you have the ability to put more information in rather than sticking it to a 2-hour format.
Mm. Oh, did you ever play the Star Wars games, like the back when the extended universe was still canon. Did you ever play those
Like
games?
the Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, and like Jedi Academy and Dark Forces and Shadow of the Empire.
I played the Old Republic and I played the Unleashed on ones, but I didn't play Academy or the other ones. I didn't
So,
wasn't huge into gaming at the time.
mm, so do you remember? I I love bringing this up whenever I talk Star Wars with somebody, but like Rogue One,
Right,
how the whole movie is like we have to get the Death Star
right.
plans. So there's a game. It came out on the PS1 and it's available on PC now. And it's called Star Wars Dark Forces, and it's the first game featuring Kyle Katarn.
Hmm.
That's the start of his story. And the thing is, the first mission of Dark Forces, not the overarching story of the game, the first mission is get the Death Star plans.
Interesting.
And that mission, with how fast I was going, without using any cheats, I got that mission done in 1 minute 30 seconds.
Ugh.
And like, so when I saw the Rogue One movie, it's like, oh, we got to get the Death Star plans, and I saw what's his name. The character's name turned out to be like Cassian.
Yes, Cassian. Yeah.
Like I saw him sprinting across the beach, and I thought that was Kyle Katarn.
Ah. Okay.
I'm like, there he is, and it's like, oh, it's Cassian. I'm like, who's Cassian?
Yeah.
And then was it Last Jedi? It's like, oh yeah, I founded a Jedi Academy. I'm like, with Kyle Katarn? And that just shows the building burning down. I'm like, cool, great.
Yeah. I wasn't a thrill with how they went with the arc on Skywalker, to be honest. Yeah, I either. But it is what it is, and it's canon now, so I just got to grumpily deal with it, I guess.
Yep. That you know what? I'm glad that everybody has the same tone on that, where it's like, yeah, it's canon now.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, with oh man, so there was that supposed feud between directors when it came to like Abrams and Ryan Johnson.
Yep.
But what so what all right, what do you think of the sequels, this three new movie trilogy?
Well, I really enjoyed Force Awakens, although I was pissed when they killed off Han Solo. I was not very pleased with that as an opening. But I think that if I can't remember the lady's name, the one who is the head of basically the Star Wars division in Disney, they did not have a set plan ahead of time, and I think that makes it very clear based on what we see in the films. Had they set a plan for this trilogy, what the initial idea was, and followed through with it, that would have been great. I honestly think that if it probably should have just left it to Abrams to do all three, and it probably would have been a lot more coherent.
Well, so what I feel happened is that like Abrams took all of Force Awakens to then set up the next two films. And so he's like, all right, we've got this storyline going on with Kylo Ren and Rey. Han's dead. Oh look, they found Luke and all this.
Right.
And it feels like he wrote it on a piece of paper and he handed it to Ryan Johnson. He goes, all right, man, make a movie, make a winner. And then Ryan Johnson looked at that piece of paper and then slowly crumpled it into a ball and tossed it into the trash can.
Yeah. I kind of felt like that he wanted to make a completely different storyline, and almost, and I think that's why the Rise of Skywalker ended up so divisive, was because The Last Jedi set up this incoherence throughout in this trilogy. It began this level of, wait a minute, something. These don't work together. They're incongruent with each other. There's a definite dissonance in the feel of the films with that. So I think if they went back and redid The Last Jedi to fit with the storyline, they probably could fix the entire new trilogy.
Or better yet, just go from Force Awakens to Rise of Skywalker and act like Last Jedi didn't even happen.
Problem is, it's a little too late because they had to input all the stuff from The Last Jedi into Rise of Skywalker.
Yep.
So it creates that huge level of dissonance in the entire series, where everything just conflicts with each other. That it feels rushed. It feels like it was a hack job almost. Like they couldn't figure out what the plan was. Like they intended Snoke to be far bigger than what he really ended up being. Things like that. It just they opened it up with a great shot with the Force Awakens, and then Rian Johnson kind of, I don't know if it was what the situation was, but it created a situation that made it seem like he just flushed the entire trilogy down the toilet. With the confusion, or maybe he had intended to make just killing off. The thing was, when they killed off Snoke so soon, it killed the ability to create an uber bad guy for the entire series, and that's what made, when they brought the Emperor back, it made it feel cheap. If anything, they shouldn't have brought Palpatine back. They should have left it alone, and they should have just continued the storyline with Kylo Ren's development, rather than rushing everything, creating this that doesn't make sense, and taking away from the value of Anakin's last actions when he was as Vader. So it really created, the entire series was not well done. I mean, I enjoyed them as a film, but as a series storyline, it was not done well.
Well, what kills me to this day, like, I saw Rise of Skywalker in theaters, like, when it came out, and I'm not one to, like, invest too much into films, but it is slightly irritating to me when a film almost goes out of its way to not answer any questions.
Right.
Like, I can totally get being vague. Like there are certain, like the horror movie The Strangers is incredibly vague, and that's the point, right?
Okay.
But, like, for example, Last Jedi, Luke's lightsaber explodes in half. It's blown apart. But then the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, it's fixed and working, and Rey's training with it, but nobody ever brings up that it got fixed. And it doesn't even look like it was ever broken.
Yeah, I think the problem was they tried to put too much into a single film. If they probably could have fixed it if they had split the Rise of Skywalker into two films in order to finally fix all of these plot holes that were created by, even though it was, technically the Rise of Skywalker is officially currently the longest running film in theaters type thing. You know, it was at 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. But there was just still too much there to put all into a single film even at that running time, nearly 3 hours. They should have just taken the time, cut it up, add more in, split it into two films. Just release them half a year or 8 months apart or something. You could have done it all in one fell swoop. I don't know.
Well, what what kind of got like on the topic of not answering questions. So do you remember the last shot of Rise of Skywalker?
Um, basically, or she says that she's Rey Skywalker. That part.
And she pulls a a brand new lightsaber
Yeah,
out
and
of
it's
nowhere.
yellow. It's part of her used made from part of her staff.
Yeah, and like that part I can understand, but then there's so many more questions.
Yeah.
It's like, where'd you get the crystal for that thing?
Right.
How did you learn to build? Like, I can understand being handy with tools, but at least show me you building it first instead of just back pocketing it.
Yeah. I think it comes down to it was a time issue. And I think that hopefully, at least, they will release a special version director's cut or something that adds in
A Snyder cut.
the Abrams cut.
It's 5
Exactly,
hours.
but it fills in all the answers, and so it won't leave you with what? How'd that happen? Why is it now yellow? How'd she build it? Or what the heck is going on? It just because it seemed so fast when Kylo suddenly became good. It was like what the? It's too fast of a situation. It just felt so rushed the entire film, and it left so many answers on so many questions unanswered and created so many more questions. So,
Well, like it's been a long. Like, I think that might be the first time I've ever looked around the theater in disbelief during a movie. Because I thought there was another 5 minutes to the film, then it
right.
ended. Well, I'm like, okay, new lightsaber. How'd she get it? Cool, she's taking the last name Skywalker. Alright, are they going to explain anything that has occurred? And then,
Yeah.
I'm just like, And I'm like looking at the people around me and they're all happy. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
I didn't see. I only saw the Force Awakens in theater, and I only had my only main big reaction was yelling "No, no!" when they killed off Han Solo. That was not. I did not enjoy that part, but I guess Harrison Ford wanted him killed off.
Yeah, wasn't it like way early that he wanted him?
He wanted him
dead?
killed off in the original trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
but oh well.
I think it's like, especially for the Han death in Force Awakens, they spend so much time giving him so much screen time. Like, hey, he's like, Chewie, we're home, and they're on the Millennium Falcon. You're like, finally, the band's getting back together.
Right. Yeah.
And then that happens, and like that's half of the thing is Han dying specifically is like half of the first half of Last Jedi, because everybody's like, wait, where's Han? Wait, you found Luke? Wait, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. It was too rushed. I just had come to the conclusion they rushed it. They didn't have a plan in place before starting it, and that's what killed the series, and that's why it was so contentious.
How do you feel about Rose?
I didn't see her as much of a character, to be honest. I don't think she was really necessary to the storyline at all.
Oh my God.
It just felt like they forced the character in. I don't know.
Well, somebody brought up a good point that Finn should have been the main character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
They could have done more.
Well, like, I like the idea of a normal, like I'm a big fan of the character archetype of ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And so for like the idea of Finn, like, not only holding his own in a lightsaber fight and like breaking out of the programming of being a stormtrooper. Like, those are amazing
Well,
character
they
moments.
insinuate that he has a bit of a connection to the Force.
Yeah, and then they proceed to do
Yeah.
nothing. And then,
Yeah.
but like what was it with Rose? I'm not a big fan of characters that like their decisions actively put other characters in danger. And like, do you ever watch The Walking Dead?
I got bored of it after they killed off. Basically, the first season when Negan shows up, after when they killed off, what's his name, Glenn, yes,
Glenn?
and I kind of stopped watching after that. It was just repetitive. It was the
Mm.
same thing every time. No, nothing different, nothing
So
unique.
so it was so I think wasn't it season 2 when they're on the farm?
I think so. I think season 2 is when they start off at the farm. Yeah.
So that's where I began to hate one of the main characters. And they only recently kicked the bucket. Do you care about spoilers?
Not really.
Okay, cool. Uh, but it goes back to my point of characters putting others in danger either inadvertently, but with just poor decision
Hmm.
making. Like, I despise Carl.
Yeah, he's did so many
I
stupid things.
I hate him so much. And the thing is, like, he's he's shown throughout the show, even as a little kid, like after he gets shot and they're on Herschel's
Uh huh.
farm, he's shown to be a smart kid, like a smart kid. But they're like, hey, stay in the house. There are zombies outside, and he's like, I'm gonna go walk in the
And not tell
forest.
anybody. And then he gets
Yep. Not.
the bus the RV driver guy killed.
Mm-hmm. And it just, but then it continues throughout the season, and it's like, oh, Carl's becoming his own man. And it's like, no, he's not. He's still wandering in the forest. He's still getting people into trouble because he's trying to be independent.
Mm.
But independence is not a thing in the apocalypse. You need help.
Yeah.
And and then finally he gets, I think, I haven't even seen the episode. I only saw the clip, and I was psyched when I saw it. He gets, like, gut shot, and he's like, oh god, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm like, good, finally. The true villain's been defeated.
Yeah.
But with Rose, like, you remember when she, like, T-bones Finn going like Mach 1 and almost kills both of
Yeah.
them? And then she's like, we gotta fight for the things we love. I'm like, you have so many internal injuries right now.
Yep. It's like, come on. He could have stopped the invasion right there with his,
Yeah, or at least bought them some
and
time.
it would have
And
provided a good character arc for Finn if he had gone out that way, rather than giving
well,
him
the
a
thing
very
is,
blah act in the third film.
instead of delegating him to Screaming Ray,
Yeah.
well, like, what killed me is that entire scene leading up to him getting T-boned is fantastic in my opinion, because like it's just that long shot of him like slowly pushing the machine faster and faster, and like everything's heating up and he's sweating and he's closing his eyes and he's
Mm-hmm.
ready, and I'm like, this is a great moment. I don't agree with it, but this is a great moment. I feel like this is earned. And then Rose is just like,
Yeah. I just felt like she was an unnecessary character. She did not feel like she fit in the story. Like they just put her in to fulfill a diversity requirement for the cast.
Well, not even that. Just like we need a love
I mean,
interest.
they could have done a love interest, and that would have worked, but it didn't create that actual. You never had that feel the
But
entire time.
but
It
you
felt
gotta.
so
But
robotic, like it was forced. Her scenes felt very forced.
but you gotta fight for the things you love, right? Right.
I mean, I think they could have done a lot more with her character, but the way they relegated it, it just made it feel. Whether that was, I don't think that was the intention, the original intention, but the way it came out,
Mhm.
it made it feel like she was just a diversity hire, and I don't
Did
want
you?
that to be the option. She could have been such a good character, especially with the fact her
Mm,
sister pretty much gave her life to stop that dreadnought, and they could have created this
mm.
wonderful character arc, make a love interest scenario with her and Finn or something. I don't know. They could have done a lot more, I think.
Well, even with like the whole casino planet thing, if they cut out maybe half of that, it could have
Mm.
worked a lot better. Like instead of like, we're gonna putz around in disguise in this casino and then get captured. It like have it be like the minute they show up, they're like, oh, rebels, and then get like the stormtroopers are like, those are look at them,
They're
like,
not. It's like one of these things aren't like the other.
but like immediately throw them both in jail, and that's where they meet Benicio del Toro's
Yeah.
character and all that. And like the thing is, that's like that last part, not the animals running free on the casino planet, even though they'll more than likely be recaptured immediately following it.
Yeah.
Which is that was a hilarious realization that I had watching that movie. I'm like, what's gonna stop like the Empire or anybody who pays the Empire to just they haven't gotten off planet. They're just like a
Yeah.
mile away.
It's like, how do you think they caught them the first time?
Uh, and like it's like I believe there's I've brought this up a couple times. It's something that Zack Snyder does in his superhero movies that I feel is it's more annoying than if the idea were done poorly, and it's introducing an interesting idea and then doing absolutely nothing
Yeah.
with it. And so like I would love the idea of exploring the intricacies of how the Empire is even funded. Like who gets the
Well, they
Empire their
kind of talk.
weapons? Who gets
Pretty
the
sure they
rebels
talk about
theirs?
that in one of the films. Basically, it's run by they provide people in these industries that make money. I mean, I think it was referred to by Benicio del Toro's character, if I remember correctly. He mentioned,
Mm.
how do you think that they are? The empire's funded. You have people who's making money by selling weapons to both sides. That's how they're getting it.
Mm.
It's all the rich people maintaining their power is entirely what it comes down to.
Yeah, yeah, but I would love to see that
Right.
expanded upon instead of yeah, we got to find these imperial codes, and then that plan's not going to work out, and
Right.
yeah, but like it's it's baffling, and like was it the idea presented near the end of the Last Jedi, where it's like, look, who cares about the light side or the dark side? We could do our own thing. We could just go out and be whatever we want. But then, of course, character archetypes have to play in, and then Kylo Ren's like, nope, still evil, even though I brought up that
Right.
idea myself.
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of boils down entirely to they didn't have a plan in place ahead of time,
Yep.
and that's why the series, the final trilogy sucks. No plan, and you're not going to be able to make a cohesive trilogy.
Just so you mentioned that Picard is your favorite Star Trek character.
Mm-hmm.
My personal favorite's Data.
I did like Data a lot. I really definitely enjoyed Data. He has because his character arc. I really enjoyed how it went about. He goes from being so naive and develops more personality, even without an emotion chip for most of the series. I think it wasn't until like season 6 or 7 that he ends up getting emotion and chip. And then the films and all that, but I do like his character arc quite a bit as well. I really liked Riker as well. Just he's kind of like a cross between Picard and Kirk in command style.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I liked it. But I liked Picard because he has the eloquence but still very firm as a captain.
Like so you hear the jokes from like back when the original series and TNG were on, and it's like, oh, or it was Kirk sleeps with anybody, or Riker sleeps with anybody, and I took that as, oh, Riker is hitting on everybody, but then you watch TNG, it's like, no, everybody's hitting on Riker.
Yep.
And like before the goatee couldn't see it, after the goatee can totally see it.
Yeah, I did very much enjoy the Next Generation series, and then, like I said, I didn't really get into Deep Space Nine. It seemed boring to me. Then again, I still have yet to get to the Dominion War, which, excuse me, part of that could be because of when it gets to that point, maybe the action kind of picks up. It just felt like too much drama, not enough action for a Star Wars series for me.
Well, the thing is, I haven't. Well, I think you meant Star Trek, but
Did I say Star Wars? I meant to say Star Trek. Okay, yeah, but yeah, it's go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I would love, I want a Star Trek, in structure. I want a Star Trek type TV show in the Star Wars universe, where it's just like a ship full of people trying to survive.
Well, they're kind of doing that with The Mandalorian.
Is that any good? I keep hearing
it is very good. It is very good. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to season 2. It was, I think, in the ashes of the Star Wars final trilogy, they were able to pull a Phoenix move with The Mandalorian. It was very well done.
Then watch, we're gonna see something on Twitter. It's like, guess what? Mandalorian's not canon.
That would really suck if they did that. They would probably tick off a lot of people if they went that route.
Well, the problem I'm having getting into The Mandalorian, because I haven't even started watching it yet, but I'm having the same issue I had with, Invader Zim when I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Is that everybody is talking about Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
And from it, how do I put it? It doesn't, from what I can tell, Baby Yoda doesn't seem to be the main narrative focal point. It's certainly a focal point, but not like the thread.
Oh, actually, it is the thread.
Oh no!
Everyone is after the Yoda baby. That's what the whole show encircles, and then the character development of the Mandalorian and everyone around him in order to protect the Baby Yoda.
From what?
So it's basically, this I guess will be sort of kind of like a spoiler for you since you haven't seen it yet. But basically, what's left of the Empire is found that this Baby Yoda exists and is trying to capture it, to
Okay.
study, test. I don't know exactly what. It doesn't really specify, but some sort of scientific testing was the intention.
Mm.
And so basically, a former governor, I think it was, or Tark, uh, not Tarkin, yeah, a Moff, I think it was, a
Mm.
former Moff or governor or something, basically hires the Mandalorian to find the Baby Yoda.
Mm.
And after the Mandalorian realizes that basically either this kid, the Baby Yoda, is going to die from experimentation or something terrible is going to happen, he ends up attacking his contractor to get the baby back. And
Mm.
then the entire rest of the season is him protecting the Baby Yoda from everyone who's trying to get access to it.
Okay. I like from an outside perspective. Well, not outside Star Wars fandom perspective, but somebody who hasn't seen the series. I feel like it's having the same effect of like like uh like Pickle Rick. You remember that? How it was like marketed to death, and it's on shirts and socks and underwear the world over.
Well, the episode was pretty awesome.
Yeah, the episode's great, but the marketing for it was terrible.
Well, they didn't focus entirely. The marketing was never focused initially on the Baby Yoda. It was after, because Baby Yoda didn't even come into view until episode 2,
Hmm.
and so nobody knew about it. It was only referred to as the child,
Mm-hmm.
and then it wasn't until after it was revealed that finally those in marketing goes, oh, everyone loves it. We need to make stuff about it. And that's why it ended up so big, because it was such a huge hit. Everyone loved the Baby Yoda.
We need to make plushies.
Basically, they realized they had a gold mine right there. They weren't expecting it. Have you seen the cartoon series Clone Wars or Rebels?
I've seen portions of both.
All right. Well, they're in season 2 on a cliffhanger regarding the dark saber,
Mm-hmm.
which is hinted and viewed a couple times in both, I believe, Rebels and Clone War. Basically, it's the dark saber was created by the very first Mandalorian Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
and at the very end of the episode for season 1 of The Mandalorian, the dark saber makes an appearance by the big bad for the next season.
Mm.
And so it leaves it really open. It's a huge deal because with the Mandalorian, the image is that the dark saber is basically his by right, the Mandalorian's by right, by being passed down because he's from the clan that the first Mandalorian Jedi was from, or something like that, or basically the person who holds the dark saber is basically the head of the Mandalorians in general, and so this kind of it left it a great cliffhanger, to be honest, for the next season, but it was really well done in the manner of they hid a lot of details instead of hyping it to no end ahead of time. And Jon Favreau was the director for the series, and he's a damn good director, and I don't think The Mandalorian would have done as well without Favreau at the helm.
Mm. So like you see your typical like Baby Yoda memes,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I So you know how EA holds like the game license to Star Wars?
Yeah.
So once in a while, I'll play The Sims, and there are Star Wars outfits in The Sims, which is fine. You know, whatever. There's a Darth Vader helmet you can get and all this. And I was decorating a house. I'm like, I want to put a decoration in this room, and I see a Baby Yoda statue. It's just like, no.
Yeah, it became excessively hyped, I think, after they realized, holy crap, we have a hit on our hands with this, because it was not as big. They didn't think it was going to be that big from all the reports I read prior to the episode, because I followed it until I got, because no, actually, I got Disney Plus right after the first episode aired.
Hmm.
I got it for free through my Verizon account.
Okay.
But I ended up with a free year of Disney Plus, and definitely well done film series. Well, very, very, very well done. I highly recommend checking it out, because they literally were not planning on doing any kind of advertising about the characters. It was very much held close to the chest every episode.
Mm.
And then once the Baby Yoda kind of really made the appearance, it just blew up huge. And then Disney, being Disney, goes, ooh, we can monetize that. And then you have everything is Baby Yoda everywhere. It's memed to no end. It's on everything. Baby Yoda plushies, Baby Yoda toys. Everything is Baby Yoda now. But that's unfortunately just, marketing in the world today. They find something that grabs a large chunk of population and go, ooh, we can make a lot of money on it, and then they market the hell out of it to a point where people it becomes saturated in the market.
It becomes
And
annoying to see.
yeah, people become fatigued by that item, and that's basically like we were talking about video games. People getting Call of Duty fatigue because they would release a game every freaking year instead of every other year, and so unfortunately, a lot of the really big companies that we can see, if we look back with the benefit of hindsight, you can see that these companies, when they realize they have a hit, they market it to death. They push it and push it to death to the point of it kills the IP. And I'm really hoping that doesn't happen in the future of at least the Mandalorian series, because I really did enjoy it, and I am looking forward to season 2. And I'm looking forward to. I'm kind of bummed with them talking about the next Star Wars film or series or show or whatever
Trilogy, whatever.
is going to be about the High Republic or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I personally would have loved to have seen was them focus on Revan and Malik. If they had done a trilogy on the Old Republic during the events that led up to Revan going dark side and then coming back and then fighting Malik and then becoming a hero kind of thing. So that would be an amazing film series if they took the time to follow the story that's already in place. It's there. It's available to them. It's not like they have to write something brand spanking new. They have almost all the information they need to make a good trilogy off of it.
But they won't.
But they want to do it with the High Republic, which was like 200 years before the events of the prequels. It's like nobody knows about that. That's not been a part of the Star Wars lore, really. Nobody gives a damn about it. It apparently wasn't big enough that it's never been mentioned, but Revan and Malik is so huge because of the Knights of the Old Republic series, and everybody knows it. you mention Revan to anyone who knows anything about Star Wars, they go, "Oh, I know that guy," you know. So,
So my question to you is, what would be your ideal Star Wars film?
I have to say, if they went the route of doing a Revan Malik series,
Mm-hmm.
going to the old Republic, when the Sith come and in full force attack
Mm.
the Empire, not the Empire, the Republic, or rather than where the rule of two exists. This is before the rule of two, so
Mm.
the Sith are an actual race at this point, and
Mm.
they come from the Outer Rim and just take over all of the Republic, and that starts they're triggered by the Mandalorian Wars, and then Revan gets involved. He goes out, helps fight, becomes
Mm.
the hero of the Republic, and goes to the Outer Rim to find out what caused the Mandalorians to start the fights, and that's where he gets turned by the Sith.
Mm.
And he comes back and starts attacking the Republic as a Sith Lord.
Mm.
I think that would be massively amazing to see, because it's a story that everyone knows. Anyone who's familiar with Star Wars enough will recognize Revan as a main character. In fact, there's a Revan. It's mentioned in The Last Jedi. There's a small short mention of Revan, or at least a mask, I believe. It's in at the end when they're fighting Palpatine. I believe there's it's like a statuette or something, or carving of something that's basically the mask of Revan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that mask is so iconic, and it's just as iconic for some people who's familiar with Star Wars as the Vader mask. And they wouldn't have a lot of work needed to make this series, and it would come out really well if they did it right. It wouldn't have this huge flop that the final trilogy had, because there's already a plan in place.
One of my favorite parts of Star Wars is the stormtroopers. 'Cause I like not the clones, but the idea that, like, the mid Empire arc, it's just people getting hired to work for the Empire.
Yeah, it's basically, if I remember the storyline correctly, the Emperor begins to distrust the clones, or for some reason or another. And I remember what it was, because in the storyline, the species who creates the clones, can't remember their names for the moment, they basically said they create a whole nother series of clones that are devoted to the protection of that species, and there ends up being a full-scale battle fought between those clones. I believe actually that's part of Battlefront 2. There's a campaign in which you go to that planet and basically fight clones.
Isn't it the 501st Legion?
I can't remember for the moment the exact name, but I know that was a big factor in why the clones were shifted from being the primary stormtroopers of the Empire to them going the route of hiring or conscripting people. Because of the ability of the Camino was the planet, for them to implant things to prevent the Empire from having total control, stuff like that. So there was that limitation, essentially. So that was the reason why they switched to the other type of story, where they were conscripts taken from their families. Some of them voluntarily go and work for the Empire, and some were hired, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's an interesting setup on that aspect, on how the development, the evolution, I guess is the best way to put it, of the stormtroopers from clones to what they were in the original trilogy.
Yeah, and I'd love to have a series that just explores like what is life like for a stormtrooper,
Mm-hmm.
but like that kind of I'm just hired for the job.
Okay.
Not even like, oh, I'm a clone that lived this long, or I was stolen at birth and raised as a stormtrooper. It's like, I just need money, and
Right.
the Empire's paying, you know.
Yeah.
And I want to see I want like a mini series
Yeah,
of
that'd be
just
interesting.
one guy trying to survive being a stormtrooper.
Well, we might actually see some of that in the upcoming Obi-Wan show that's supposed to be coming out. That will be taking place during the time that Obi-Wan is on Tatooine, during his exile.
Do you think he's gonna morph into what's his name, Alan McGinnis at the end?
Well, I mean, they could probably do it well enough. I mean, he kind of has a very Alec McGinnis look, so he looks like he could definitely be a younger Alec. So it wouldn't be hard with the special effects to kind of give that morphing
Well,
along
especially
with
with
it.
today's special effects.
Yeah. So
How they brought back Tarkin.
right, and that was actually done pretty darn well. The Tarkin was, I thought, was. I mean, you could tell if you look close enough, but
Mm.
if you're not looking heavily at it, it looked pretty good.
I think it was when he was moving, you could tell. Like if he was when he was standing still, I'm like, that looks like they just took a picture.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely. I think I'm looking forward to it because, as far as I'm aware, Ewan McGregor is still planning on playing as Obi-Wan. So that'll be awesome because I honestly think that was probably the best part of the prequels was Ewan McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
His
Well,
portrayal of young Obi-Wan was amazing.
well, for all the guff that the Phantom Menace gets, I hear me out. Wait, hold hold on. Um, I thoroughly enjoy the last fight between uh, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite part in the Duel of Fates.
Well, not only like with Qui-Gon, but like after Qui-Gon gets stabbed
Mm-hmm.
and Obi-Wan is fighting as hard as he can.
Yeah.
And there's a move that he does that's still like it looks so fast, and I can't imagine what it was like to choreograph it. But it's when like Obi-Wan's like facing the camera, and Maul goes to hit him from behind, and he blocks behind him, and then right after that, Maul goes to attack him from the front, so he goes like straight from behind him to the front in one like swift motion.
Yeah, I mean, the lightsaber duels were very well. You could see the evolution, the improvement throughout the prequels,
Mm-hmm.
and especially compared to the original trilogy. I mean, holy crap, the original trilogy. That very first duel between it was just so
Mm-hmm.
terrible. Have you seen the fan made version? The
Yes, I
updated one. I mean, they ought to just go ahead, pay that dude some money, upgrade it so it looks good and fits in, and then just re-release that one film with that section in it, and it would fix the biggest problem of A New Hope, which was that stupid poking each other with a lightsaber fight.
Well, I think there's a happy balance to be struck. Like you know how the original idea with the lightsaber was that it was kind of like heavy and it was hard to wield.
I I don't see that ever being in any of the lore aside from the original lightsabers, which were attached to packs, battery
Mm-hmm.
packs. Um, but they never appeared to be like cumbersome.
Mm.
The
Well,
reason for that really
mm,
low quality fight was the Alex age,
yeah,
um, and the fact
and
that
the
the
and the
guy,
actor in the Vader suit.
yeah, he wasn't really there for able to learn the choreographs for the lightsaber
Mm.
fights. But my favorite lightsaber fight was actually from Revenge of the Sith, or whatever the last one was, the last of the prequel. I think it's Revenge of the
Yeah,
Sith or
Revenge of the Sith.
something. That fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan was wow, that is impressive. It's just the movements and it flowed but felt so violent. It was really well
Mm.
done.
Well, like there's certain parts of that fight that I've heard guff about, but like one of the ones that I'm strangely willing to defend is that shot where they're doing windmills
Right.
in front of each other, and they're like, oh, they're just twirling their lightsabers, and to me, they're both looking for an opening.
Yeah.
Like Obi-Wan, almost that entire fight's playing the defensive, but Anakin's looking for an opening to kill him.
Yeah. And this is the awesome thing is the way the lore is supposed to be is that Anakin was like the best swordsman of the Jedi.
Mm.
And the fact that Obi-Wan held against him so easily and then ends up defeating him shows that in my opinion, I think Obi-Wan is probably the best
Mm.
swordsman of all the Jedi ever.
Well, then it also plays into the idea that when you've sort of succumbed to the dark side, you become unfocused.
Right.
You're
But that's the big thing that made it so frustrating when watching the original trilogy is that poking that they do.
mm,
It's like, wait a minute, you went from this dude who had the most amazing uh, sword fights if you're trying to make this feel right. And another problem I had with with the prequels was the fighters looked like they looked too new, I guess you
mm,
could say. Well, when you compare them to TIE fighters and X Wings of the future,
mm,
the ships that were in the battles earlier on just seemed too modern.
mm.
So you have this feel of modernism in the prequel trilogy, and then you get to the original trilogy, and there's this feel that something, and I can sort of see an explanation on how you have this degradation of technology,
Mm.
but you can't do that so much with the fighting.
Yeah.
It just
Well,
felt, eh.
well, like so one of my favorite fights in all of Star Wars is the fight in Empire,
Okay.
because I grew up with that. I
Oh yeah.
in that, and I love how it's presented because it's somebody who like Luke who is clearly not trained enough,
Right.
and then there's Vader who's just like,
Toying with them almost.
yeah, toying with him and then just slowly just beating him into the ground. And especially when it comes to like when he's like he gets to a point where he's literally throwing boxes at Luke's head and Luke can't even like dodge him.
Yeah, he's like off by a second, and so every time he makes a swing, he's off like 15 feet from it, type thing.
Mm.
Yeah, you can
And
see that he's definitely doesn't have the skill, and yeah, I can see that.
yeah, and I love how it goes from like I'm gonna face him down, I'm gonna save my friends to like desperate like need to survive
Mm-hmm.
and then losing a hand and but then you get to like Return of the Jedi where he's trained, and it feels like it's like a year or like 2 years later.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be. If I remember correctly, the crawl indicated it's been quite some time. It's been at least a couple of years, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. And like
Um,
then you see Luke walk in, and he's so confident and like intimidating,
right?
and then he like force chokes those two guards.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's not a light side power. Why is he choking those two people out? And like just seeing that, it's not, how do I put it? It's not confidence to the point of arrogance.
But there's a bit of swagger.
Yeah, where it's just like, look, Jabba, you're making a mistake, and I'm trying to tell you you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
And Jabba's like, oh, whoa, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the Empire fight because it's very clearly just like it fits that character. It's not like, oh, he's perfect at sword fighting because you know,
Yeah.
because he loses super hard.
Oh yeah, it was definitely. See, I grew up on the original trilogy before they even had uh, the re-release where they added in a bunch of stuff that, in my opinion, kind of made it look more cheesy.
Yeah, I've got the old VHS copies.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm quite a bit older, so in fact, Return of the Jedi came out a couple years after I was already born. So
Hmm.
I think what year did it come out? Oh, Return of the Jedi. I think it came out in '85, but I could be wrong.
Very quietly googling this.
'83. So it came out the year I was born.
Nice. And then 4 years later, Predator came out. That's my gauge for the 80s.
So I mean, I grew up on a lot of the whole '80s thing, and very much enjoyed the Star Wars. I mean, we had it for a long time. We even got there was a special edition that came out in, I want to say like '92. But it was before they still added in all that ridiculous stuff. It was updated graphics, but they hadn't added in the weird creatures.
Now it's episode 4.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah, it was definitely, I enjoyed. I was big into the sci-fi growing up because sci-fi was huge in the '80s and '90s. It was like, I think, to be honest, I think that was like the golden years of sci-fi when it really became a big genre for everyone to enjoy. You had Battlestar Galactica come out. Then in the '90s, you had Andromeda. You had Babylon 5. You had the re-release, you had Next Generation during the '80s, and Voyager, DS9, and Voyager in the '90s and early 2000s. So I mean, you see this very significant and improved design of the technology in sci-fi that feels really good, and it's gotten to a point where now they're realizing people want to see more realistic sci-fi. I don't know if you've seen the series The Expanse.
I had not.
Highly recommend. It's on Amazon Prime. So if you have a Prime account, you can watch it there. It is the most realistic sci-fi film series you're ever gonna watch. I mean, following laws of physics, realistic. So that kind of became the pinnacle, in my mind, of sci-fi shows that feel realistic, has a smart way of keeping that level where people don't go, oh well, it's a bunch of space wizards, or like some people nowadays look at Star Wars, oh, they were just a bunch of space wizards. or in Star Trek being so far into the future that it's just kind of a little ridiculous, but still having that within the realm of reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then
And like,
graphics is also significant improvement, which is nice.
well, then like when it comes to science fiction, for me at least, I like the idea of like functional science fiction.
Yeah.
Like one of the bane of my existence when it comes to certain stories is like, oh, we just poured nanites on it and it fixed it.
Yeah.
Or we have nanobots that are in your bloodstream that will heal your wounds. And like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. But when it comes to like Alien, where everything's still running on tape and it's like CRT monitors
Uh-huh.
in a giant spaceship, I for some reason I love that because I feel like that would be the most effective.
Well, I mean, yeah, for the longest time, all of our technology was using CRT and tubes and whatnot. I mean, we're just now at a point where, with the SpaceX and the Dragon capsule, now it's done by touchscreen tablets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so for the longest time, everything was done by switches, knobs, and toggles, and CRT monitors. No touchscreen anything really. And
Well,
now we're reaching this point where everything's touchscreen and real futuristic, and now getting to a point of learning to master holographic projection, things like that.
mm,
So, my favorite authors kind of predicted a lot of it, and that's what I've really enjoyed about watching sci-fi now.
mm.
Good sci-fi. I'm not talking like Sci-Fi Channel sci-fi.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite shows growing up was Stargate, SG-1,
I love Stargate.
and then you have my favorite authors, Isaac Asimov. Um, Darn it, I'm brain farting on the guy who wrote Ender's Game.
Oh, Orson Scott Card.
Yes, big on that.
How did I remember that? I haven't even read that book.
Or Dune, Frank Herbert's Dune, another great one. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, they are making a new Dune series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Hopefully they do it well. I mean, to be honest, so far the best Dune series that you're going to be able to watch is the miniseries from Sci-Fi.
Have you heard of Arthur C. Clarke?
Oh yeah, Space Odyssey 2001. He actually, I think he did end up like Space Odyssey 2031 or something like that. I read the entire series.
One of my favorite science fiction novels is from him, and it's Rendezvous with Rama.
I've heard that one. I'm not sure. I might have read it when I was younger. I'm not exactly sure when that was, though.
It's this really interesting exploration into how a future society would like kind of look at extraterrestrial life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain moments where there's certain aspects that you don't consider when they write about future societies.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever you watch a sci-fi movie, it's like, oh, look at this wonderful, amazing technology. But then the writers kind of forget these characters already kind of live in this world, so this isn't new to them.
Right.
And so there's a moment where a guy is doing a holographic, like, essentially a Skype call with leaders of these other, like, humanity has colonized all the planets in the solar system.
Okay.
And they all have like a meeting committee, and there's a chapter where he's just like, oh, great, I gotta get in this damn call. Alright, I'm ready. He's just like sitting in the chair. He's like, alright, project me. Whatever.
Right. Yeah,
And,
I really love the the classic sci-fi authors. Asimov and Clarke were my favorite growing up. I can't count how many books I've read from them at this point. It's been a while since I've read them, but I started off reading quite a bit, and they tended to push me towards looking for authors who had that kind of writing style where they were very descriptive, where they could paint an image in my mind as I read that kind of felt like I'm watching a film as I'm reading it. And that's what really sucked me into these authors, because they could so well paint this image that I could imagine myself watching or living that experience.
Mm-hmm. I, well, like, they, was it Rendezvous with Rama had this really interesting look into, like, so, you know, when you have stories of, like, oh, there's an alien life form, it's either, oh, that alien life form's bad, or it's trying to understand us, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine a ship entered Earth's orbit as we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Like you looked outside and there's a giant cylinder orbiting Earth. That's the basis of Rendezvous with Rama. Is what the hell is that?
Right.
And they, instead of like, oh, we gotta blow it up, which is the solution of some of the planets, some of the societies that live on some planets, but there's also the, like, you know what, let's send a team to go inside the ship and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this baffling cacophony of, like, are you familiar with the concept of the Dyson sphere?
Yes, very much so.
So what the inside of Rama is it's an entire ecosystem that exists on the inside of a cylinder.
Okay.
So you could stand on grass on one side of the cylinder and look into the horizon and watch it wrap all the way up and around the cylinder back to you.
Right. Well, that's different from a Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere is a construct that encircles a star using the star as energy. So basically, it'd be like having a sphere the size of the star Betelgeuse around the sun, kind of thing,
Yeah.
to gather energy to supply the in people, the culture. But yeah, that having that sphere thing where, or not sphere, but the cylinder one, I'm pretty sure they had that in Interstellar. They kind of had it at the end when he ends up coming out of the black hole. He's in the future, and that's how they fixed everything, was going using gravity essentially to create ships that could do this cylinder type design inside, so everyone could live inside, and it's like a planet inside a ship almost.
So they introduced this interesting concept where, so what's it called? It's using the Rama's using rotational force to create artificial gravity, much
Right.
like the best example I can say for like the party people at home is the movie The Martian.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they have part of the space station that's rotating constantly that creates artificial gravity.
Right. It's
That's the
centrifugal force. Right.
Yeah, and that's the main example. Like, that's the clearest picture I have in my head. But they actually explore that along the axis in which it's rotating, there is no gravity.
Yeah. I mean, if you were able to jump up high enough, you'd just float there.
Yeah, and they toy with that idea because when they first get into the ship, there's no gravity because they parked right in the center of that axis.
Yeah.
And so they're like, and they even toyed with, like, all right, we're gonna lower a ladder, and then we're gonna just kind of like push ourselves down the ladder and then free fall a little bit and catch ourselves because there's not enough gravity to really hurt us.
Yeah.
but I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. It's like, especially for you wonderful party people at home, it's a really cool look into like the weird procedures into looking into extraterrestrial life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had that at the end of Interstellar, something similar design of that with that cylinder, and I think in the show The Expanse, there's a ship that has a section that's a cylinder that does that rotation thing, and they have the camera angle. It looks up, and you see the horizon that just wraps around.
mm,
So yeah, and it's a pretty nifty concept, and that's probably the only way we're going to be able to effectively explore the stars or explore our solar system at that is by being able to produce some sort of gravitational force because you heard about that I think he was a Canadian, but the astronaut who spent the longest time up in at the space station.
I have not.
um, Anyway, well, he basically spent like almost a full, I think, oh, actually over a full year. I think it was 13 months in space.
Mm,
And when he came back, he basically was a complete invalid for several months recovering because of how much bone density he lost.
mm,
His immune system was impaired. He even lost significant vision in his eyes. Um,
mm,
he had problems where his skin would, his body would swell up from the body trying to get used to the gravity again and
mm,
cause swelling. It was very traumatic recovery from being in space so long. So
mm,
imagine if we're trying to go to, say, we want to go to Mars, that's a 3-month trip at our fastest
mm.
speeds. So 3 months in space is not going to be that. Actually, I think it's more than 3 months. I think it's like 16 months right now at our current speeds, but it's
Mm.
really really long distance. If we were trying to go to, say, Mars, or say we ignore Mars and go to Titan, since it's the only celestial body with a atmosphere of the same density as Earth's, um, then I mean the problem we would have is making making it so that these astronauts could survive that trip without having such significant health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that would be our only solution: is creating a cylinder or something that creates a bit of a gravitational force through centrifugal force. I mean, you see it in Star Wars and Star Trek where it's just they have uh,
They just walk onto the
yeah,
ship.
they just have gravity plates or whatever it is.
Magnet boots. I don't know.
No, I believe in Star Trek they actually have gravity plates that produce gravity in the ship, uh,
Hmm.
as well as all kinds of ways to get away from. Because remember the show in Next Generation, every time the Enterprise would warp in, it'd warp in and then just come to a complete stop from going stupid fast.
Yep.
Be freaking paste if that were to happen. That which is another callback to the show The Expanse that I had watched. They kind of show that what would happen to your body if you're going
Oh.
an insane speed and then suddenly, very dramatically, drop that speed down. What would happen to you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so I do recommend checking that one out because it definitely keeps to the physics and the realities of engineering and physics as it is today. Maybe a little bit more advanced, but keeps with it in realism. Where instead of having some special shield field thingy that protects you from going from warp 10 to a complete stop and not
We've gone plaid.
yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how a lot of sci-fi ignores these concepts. And when you
Mm-hmm.
have someone who thinks about it enough, they go, you know what? Why? This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any kind of sense.
Wait a minute. Well, it's like even with like the lightsaber, like multiple scientists are like, the blade wouldn't just stop.
Yeah, even if they could get it to stop, the heat it would generate, because remember they in the prequels, all they did was just stuff it into a metal blast door and it starts melting it. The heat of holding a hilt there would fry your skin instantly. I mean, you the possibility of creating an actual lightsaber is just not possible at all. There would be require such significant ways of getting around current physics that it would have been just easier to go about designing a different type of weapon.
just make something else, man.
Right? It's a cool concept in the way it looks and in the way they play the show and all of that in the movies, but in reality, it would never work, no matter what. No matter how far into the future we went, it would never work. We would need a whole new law of physics.
Well, it's kyber crystals, man.
Right?
It's kyber crystals.
It's got to be the kyber crystals.
That's how it... Look, man. We don't know. You're gonna be that guy.
Right?
You don't know. But I think with the vague hope there will be a lightsaber in the future, I think we will draw this here interview to a close. I have had a blast talking to you, Beyond.
Yeah, it's been nice chatting about just whatever. It's been very excellent. Good chatting with you as well.
I know we got off topic, but don't worry. That's the point.
Okay. Not a problem.
See, there's no script. There's no structure.
It's just talking whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, just rolling those dice and see what comes out.
Exactly.
But you wonderful party people at home, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you did, please go check out Beyond's channel. It'll be linked in the description of this video. Do you have a video that you'd like to recommend to the party people?
Well, if you want to kind of get a backstory of what's going on, because throughout my streams, I'm creating there's a bit of a backstory that's occurring. It kind of starts off at Logs of Lobotomized number 3 is where you're really going to start noticing that there's a story that's occurring within the first 45 minutes of the streams. And basically, if you're not wanting to sit through the entire 4 or 6 hour stream, if you want to just check out the first a little bit of it, you'll kind of get a backstory, and I'm going to continue developing that story along as it goes forward. But probably be a good way to start off is at Logs of the Lobotomized number 3.
Okay, and I will link that here in the description for you wonderful party people at home to check out. Also consider checking out The Expanse as we've talked about here.
Yeah, definitely a great show. Awesome show. Highly recommend it.
And I'll leave you guys with a book recommendation. Please go check out Rendezvous with Rama, especially you, Beyond. I think you'd like it.
Absolutely. I'll definitely check that out.
It's in audio book format. I'm not sponsored, by the way. I'm not sponsored by Audible, but it's on Audible, and that's where I read it the first time, and it's great.
Oh, okay. Absolutely.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Beyond, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope all of you, wonderful party people at home and beyond, I hope you have a wonderful night, and I will see you all next time.
You have a great one.